In today's video, we're going to teach you how to make a sifter screen out of just a couple supplies and a few tools. Please stick around and watch. We got the tools up next that you need and the supplies you need to complete this project. So these are the supplies you're going to need for this project. You're going to need PVC pipe. I like to do 1/2 inch. You can buy longer ones, which are cheaper than the pre-cut ones, but if you want to do pre-cut ones, go for it. 4 90-degree elbows. You're going to need pool noodle or pool noodles, depending on how big you make yours. You can kind of change up the size. A Sharpie to mark, a tool to cut, and so you can either use, these are specifically designed for PVC and give you really nice clean cut. You can use some kind of a saw blade or sawzall, whatever you want. You can even use a chop saw if you really want to. They do make a mess. This does not make any mess, which is why I like it. Get some PVC kind of glue. You might need some kind of wrench to get it off. For the hardwire mesh over here, cloth mesh, I like to call it hardwire mesh because cloth mesh makes no sense. I like to do the 1/4 inch that lets pennies and everything else not fall through, shark teeth not fall through. Whatever you're trying to get out, hopefully it sifts it but does not sift what you want out. And so depending on what size you want, get that size. The bigger the hole, obviously, the more stuff gets sifted quicker. So that's whatever you want. A pair of scissors really to cut some of the wire ties, the ends of it, something to measure. You can use a yardstick, whatever you want. Obviously, if you're over 3 feet, a yardstick will not work. And then some kind of zip ties. I like to get some longer ones and some smaller ones. The longer ones will go over the pool noodle. This will hold the mesh in. And so those are the tools and supplies you'll need. Some of these are optional, but I think they really do help make the best possible sifter. So the first thing I like to do is go ahead and get your can open, turning it to the left. Also, you want to make sure it's good. If this has been sitting a while, it should be kind of like that. Don't know if you can see the elasticity in it, but it is good. So we will set that off to the side. Do not knock that over now that you have that up. Since we're making a 2 foot by 2 foot, I like the actual dimensions to be 2 foot by 2 foot. So we're not going to sit here and cut 24 inches. Which would be tempting to do. So you measure, I can't really see it just off camera, the end of the tape measure. I wanted to make sure you could see this. I'm going to do 21 1/4, which will get me really close. And I just draw a nice little line on both of them. And then I'll do the other two sides in a minute. So go ahead and take your tool. Again, you can use lots of other different devices besides this. This is what I prefer. Because watch how easy. You line up the silver right there and it kind of clamps down right on it. And it does take 2 hands to do this, at least the first one. 3 pinches and you're done. Now this is too small, so I will save that for another project at some point. Same thing with this one. I like to put the silver side up so you get a little bit better view on it. Then 1, 2, that one only took 2. Which is pretty awesome. So you're half done with your cuts. And then you're going to take your next piece of PVC pipe and do the same thing again. This one is much longer than the previous one, so it is a little harder to get perfect. So 21 1/4 is what we decided. It is important that you start with the PVC first, and that will get me all that I need on those little scrap pieces I had. Again, it's cheaper if you buy it in 10-foot segments. I don't think they make 12-foot, but 10-foot segments. And 2 foot by 2 foot is a really great size. Not too big, not too small. Now that you have all those done, your tape measure can go right for the rest of the thing, because we are not going to actually use the tape measure to measure the cloth mesh, the metal stuff, because I just think it takes, doesn't have to be that precise, and it just takes a little extra time. And so the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and get this. Again, you're going to want to mix it up just a little bit. And I like to just coat the inside of this and dump the rest out. So you want a pretty solid all the way around with the yellow. Some of them are different colors. And then you will take it and push it nice and flat on there. Now the one thing you do have to really be careful of is that these stay the right direction. So I like to put them down on a table or something flat afterwards, to make sure, and then we go ahead and do the next side. So you don't want to just do all 4 really quick, because then it's going to be kind of hard to tell. Push it in nice and firm, press down, and that does it. And so the glue will help. You might get a little bit, you can clean that up. I don't really care because you're not going to see it much, because your pool noodle will be cut and going over top of it. So now that that's correct, just to kind of show you what it's going to kind of look like, we're going to do the next side. And so you can do it a bunch of different ways. I'm going to scoot that out of the way because we don't need it anymore, just to make sure we're nice and good. So again, you're just making it to where it's all in there, and then you push this one in nice and firm. And so it should set nice and flat. If it's up on an angle, that is not correct, and you only have a few seconds to correct that. So hurry up and do that fast. And you might see some remnants of stuff on this. This was a previously used one, but it will still work well. Probably should have taken a little knife and cut some of this excess off. Be careful when doing this towards you, just to make sure it's a nice, had some kind of glue on it from some other project I've done. Just to make sure it sets nice and flat. Again, you only have a few seconds to correct it if it's not nice and flat, so hurry up and do that pretty quick. So, we're almost done with this portion. Just 2 left. Nice and good on there. And you're gonna push it on as hard as you can. Make sure it lays down nice and flat. It's not as nice and flat as I want it to be. So sometimes you do have to kind of push down on it on both sides. That does kind of help make that become nice and flat. The gluing will also help kind of keep it intact when you're out there and in the water of any sort, creek or stream or ocean. Will just kind of really help it stay in place. Now this one I actually do both at the same time, the last one. And so you got to go real quick on it, making sure you got both of them. And I kind of like to push down on it on both sides, especially this last one there it was. And there you go. That one is complete all the way around. So you can see all of them have been done. Go ahead and put your cap back on. Obviously glue, it will dry out pretty quick if it has exposure to air too long. And also make sure it's on straight, because that one was not. I was going to cross thread it, which is never good for anything. And then just lightly snug it down. Perfect. So the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and get your wire mesh out. When you get these, a lot of times the cloth mesh comes with these really long metal, it's like real thin metal that kind of spirals around the whole thing, and you got to take it off and it seems like the whole thing explodes. Rubber band's a good fix, so you don't have to put that back on there and get an eye injury or something else. So what I like to do is I like to put it flat against the table like this. This is an old table, so I don't care if it gets scratched. Don't do this on a dining room table. Somebody in your family will be mad at you. So do it on an old table. And what I like to do is just have just a little bit of excess around the whole thing. And so it might be hard to see on here, but there's just going to be a little bit of excess all the way around. And I like to just take a Sharpie again and to just draw kind of what line it is that I want. the whole way across, and you kind of can just keep with the same one. And then same thing with up here. You just kind of stay inside the same one, and I just wrote all over that table. Good thing this is an old table. I'm gonna get something to clean that off real quick. The power of kaboom. Don't know if this actually works on permanent marker, but we're gonna see right now. Not great, but it did take some of it away. I should have known better than that. Put a paper towel down or something. Oh well, old table, don't care. That's why I said don't do this on your dining room table just a minute ago, because somebody in your family would probably be mad at you right now. So once you have that, you should be able to see the black outline pretty easily on where you're going to cut. Then you take, I'm taking 10 snips because they work really well cutting metal, which is 10, and I should have put this over top. I know better than that. Your beautiful little structure sifter piece kind of becomes a good thing to help hold this down and on top of it really well. Maybe not as good as I thought. Get a couple of the things you used for this video and just throw them down on top, because there you go. And then you just start cutting. If you're using scissors on this, you're probably going to ruin the scissors. We may have to cut just a little bit of excess off, but I'd rather have a little too much than not enough when you're doing this project. Yeah, you would totally destroy your scissors. Don't use scissors. Get something that actually is meant for cutting metal. And then we will rotate this and cut this side. Right down here's the line. It might be hard to see on the video, but it may be showing up. You can also buy these sifters online, but I think they're better when they're homemade. The other ones look pretty cheap online, and they cost a lot more than this, because I had almost all of these supplies at home, so I didn't have to pay really anything for this project. Throw that aside, and there is your mesh right there. And so the goal of this is, and it will take a few minutes to get all the way around this with zip ties, and cut the zip tie ends off. But in this bag there are lots of different size zip ties. I'm really going for the smaller ones, which this one is all mixed together. I'm just going to kind of throw them out and try to pull most of the small ones. It's okay if there's bigger ones too. So you just start in one area and you just begin to work your way around. So I'm going to start back here. And I like to kind of, I don't know if you can see, there's a little bit extra. I like to kind of bend that up and around with it. So when you start, you do want to make sure you still have some room on the other side, but I like to make sure that's really in there. And so you just take it, zip ties only do go one direction, and I like to kind of get it started to where you kind of start on opposite sides of one another and work your way back to the center. That way each side is kind of pulling for itself. And you might be thinking, well, these zip ties actually hold up in the water, and they do pretty well. And the other good thing is you can always bring a couple extra with you if you're having issues. This is one of those really small ones which work pretty well, but they do make you get it almost perfect to get it started. And if you don't hear it starting to go down, it did not work. Okay, and the next one will be over here. So you should hear it go down a little bit just like that. The last one did not end up holding, So maybe the smallest ones in this set will not work good, so make sure you get 6" or more. That's what you want to hear. And then once you kind of get all the corners on both sides, which I'm just starting on that, you can kind of go throughout. And you might be thinking, well, you might poke yourself with the wire mesh. Well, you're going to have that pool noodle zip tied over, which is going to work great. Then I would wait till the end to cut all these off and just kind of go around pretty quick and do all of them at once. And sometimes as you go back around, you can pull up and get a little more tight on some of them. It's one of the reasons I don't like to cut them right away as well, because as you do this, it will naturally stretch out this wire mesh, which is what you want. Cloth mesh, Mark, come on. Mcfixit screwing up today, saying the wrong stuff. And so this will take a lot of these, but that's not a bad thing. That just means it's going to be more and more secure, because when you have your payload up top, you want to make sure you can get a good scoop or two and make sure it doesn't fall through. Again, once you got kind of all the corners done, you can put a couple more on each side, because it's not going to move a whole lot more after that. You could mark this out and measure each one, but I don't see that a necessity. You're just going to want them every couple of inches. About every 3 or 4 inches normally is good. This gives you a little bit better view of the bag, even though that was a big count. We use most of the 6". So take scissors, go ahead and start cutting. Obviously, however many you put on, you got to cut. The other thing I like to do is spin these downward if you can, as much down as possible. That just helps it. That pool noodle will fit really snugly. I'll show you that in a little bit on this 1/2" pipe. Sometimes you can also use like the end of the scissors, the back handle piece, to kind of push those around. I would avoid using the metal part so you don't accidentally cut anything, but some of them do get a little difficult. This one is being a real big booger. There it goes. I believe that's because I do have this is a reused one, and this glue piece right here is kind of interfering with that right there. There it went. Some of them on this glue piece is just not being friendly. Using something else for leverage sometimes helps. Yeah, it turns much easier on this piece that had no glue on it. Throw those in a trash can. Yeah, that glue on that is really being a booger. So the next thing I like to do is actually get back those pair of metal and actually trim up the corners. You can see this corner is kind of long. This is the only thing that can potentially be a little bit exposed. And so what I like to do, don't do too much, but just try to get it a little more straight so it's less likely to poke out at you. Throw the excess away. Same thing with this corner. Just kind of work your way around. So that is done with that portion now. So we're gonna grab a pool noodle. I'm gonna show you one thing real quick. Go ahead and throw off the sticker. These PVC pipes, I wish there was some way you could just literally put them in. They fit absolutely perfect in that 1/2-inch PVC, which is kind of cool, which is why I like to use 1/2-inch. I know some people use 3/4 inch. Not as big a fan of that. So what I like to do is kind of envision, and you can trim some of this up afterwards, but you can either put a Sharpie marker if that's what you like to do, so you know, then you just use your box cutter. You just press it in and slide it around, and it will do a pretty nice cut for you there. Oh, I didn't go all the way around this little last section. And so it does a pretty good job right there. These are a little bit smaller pool noodles. I don't know if it says the size. They feel like about 5 foot, probably because they're from the Dollar Tree. Then this is kind of maybe the next harder part, is you want to cut as straight of a line as you can down this. So what I like to do, kind of helps, is get the side of this like this and kind of push down. And what I like to do is just go along the side. I'm not going to do it right this second, but just go along the side of this PVC pipe, and that kind of gives you kind of like almost like a natural straight edge. Now obviously there's going to be some bumps, and then the last little chunk is a little bigger, and once you got that, sometimes you do have to go back through because of the angle of your blade, but that should give you a pretty good straight cut. So the next goal is to simply slide it over the said portion. Oh, I moved it. It was this side. Try to do the same side that you actually measured against. It will help. And as you're putting this on, it is not the easiest thing, and it kind of wants to slide around a little, but it will begin to go in there. The other side as well. It's getting caught up in a couple of places, but after you finagle it around a little bit, it will begin to go in. It does help if you kind of peel some of it up as you got one end in. And so, almost right where we want it. So that's just about perfect right there for that first section. And again, this is where we're going to use those bigger black zip ties right now. I like to put at least like 5 or 6 on each side. Start in the corner. And I like to kind of continue to do it the same way. So I'm flipping it back over, doing it in the corner here, taking it So you are going to tighten these ones down. It's going to feel a little bit more than the previous, but that's okay. That's kind of what you want. This is kind of your final security blanket to make sure everything stays in, which is exactly what we want. And over time, you may have to replace a pool noodle or two. These are from the Dollar Tree, so they are not the best. I don't think they're probably any different than what you get at Walmart or Amazon or anything else. But over time, these things can break off. That's why it's always good to have a couple of extra on you. And these ones are hard to move after you got them down, so try your best to place them as close to the bottom as possible. It does help if you make these ones look a little better spaced out than the previous ones. The other ones don't really matter that much. So that's it for that side. I like to do the other side, the opposite side next. So that's what it kind of looks like on that side. And you're gonna dump the screen stuff in on this side because that's where you got all the stuff. But let's go ahead and flip it over. Do the other side. This pool noodle should be a little bit easier to work with because it's a little smaller than the previous one because you're using the same one. So I lied, it's like 4.5 foot long pool noodle. Because I've only got about 6 inches after that cut. And again, stick it down in and twist the noodle around. That will help get you pretty accurate straight cut. Boom. So you do have a little left over, throw it in the trash, do something else with it, recycle it. Probably can't recycle it actually. So same concept, follow it. Make sure it all the way opens. Forgot about stretching the first one out a little bit. It will help get it in there a little easier. It does have natural kind of memory to go back to what it was doing before. So that's just to kind of show you a little, just a touch of a different view on it. I know some people like to have the corners exposed. I don't like to do that because I don't want anything falling through. If I'm trying to sift something, I want to make sure it sifts what I want and not what I don't want. So I might be doing a little different than some of the other people you may have seen out there, but I don't like the corners not how they're supposed to be. So same concept on this side. One in the center, 2 on the ends. And then one in the middle between the two. And because this has the pool noodle and I've actually gone ahead and PVC'd, glued the different pieces, it normally works pretty well with floating. I mean, obviously if you're putting tons and tons of super heavy stuff on it, it's not going to do as good of a job, but it should do pretty well. Oh, I did that one backwards. I knew I did that backwards. I like them all facing the same way, at least on the top. I don't really care about the inside bottom. Same thing with these, you're going to want to cut these as close as you can. These are a little bit harder to do. In fact, probably be even better if I used my 10 snips. Yeah. Throw the leftover in the trash. Same thing with these. Yeah, there's 10 snips work 10 times better. Trash for that. Got 2 sides left and we are done. So the reason I like to do this side and this side, and then the middle last, is because if you do it that way, you can get it almost perfect to where you have complete coverage the whole way around. And so this allows you to not have the end piece as a factor in all of that. And I'm okay if it's over, that it like smashes it a little bit. So go ahead and take your knife, stick it down in, spin the tube around again. You should be getting the hang of this by now. Take the end off, save the rest of it for the last piece. Same concept here. This just helps get you a nice straight cut, because on a round thing, sometimes that doesn't happen real easy. Then you just begin to stretch it out. Let's start to put it over. You may have to kind of adjust it down or back. Okay, 5 more. Same concept, you're going to want to pull it down and get it as close to that mesh as possible. One thing I don't know if I've said, and I probably should have said this before, make sure you're at the closest one you can be, because if I was one behind it, it would not tighten down as good. So I'll show you in just 1 second, a little closer on the camera. When you're doing it, you don't want to be like one higher than that. You want to be as close down as possible, so as it tightens, it can tighten properly. Go ahead and grab those 10 snips, because those worked really well last time. 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you have a little too much extra, you can clip it again. But again, we're going to be pouring our good stuff in on this side. So even if you're touching it, you shouldn't get cut at all. And we will trim up again the ends one last final time as soon as we get done, which will be in just a few moments. So again, you're going to want to be on the inside and inside of that. You mark it, same kind of cut again, straight down, spin it around. That'll help keep as good of a line as you can get. Boom. Again, you're going to want to stretch it out like we have been doing. And get that to go up and around. And you'll want to check it on the other side, make sure it all looks good and dandy. 5 more beautiful zip ties. Cut them off, trim off the ends of the corners, and we are done with this project. Oop, I almost did it upside down. Remember, you want all these little zip tie ends to be the same direction. Very important. I'm not even close to center. There I am. It's not going to be the end of the day if you don't have them the correct direction, but I just like it because it just makes it nice and easy when you're sifting to make sure you're doing it right. You're getting all the stuff you want and you're not cutting your finger or anything like that. Especially if you're in salt water or water that's at all salty, you do not want to cut your finger. Not just for sharks, but that hurts. Very painful. But also for sharks, let's just be honest. Nobody wants a shark bite. Or some other kind of animal biting you. Fish, or I don't even know what else. Alligator. No thanks. So the last thing I'd encourage you to do is just kind of flip it over. Make sure it feels good. That thing's going to be a great one. Any of these that are sticking out, I would go ahead and cut off as much as you can, especially the individual ones that are kind of pokers. That's the last thing you want is poked. So if it's squared off, normally it's fine, but the pokers tend to hurt a lot. And so you can kind of get in there, especially if you got a good pair of these, you can just straight up get in there and cut all of it off, which is what I tend to do. But if you don't have a good pair, there's a couple other options. You can use scissors. I encourage you not to because it will dull them. But yeah, just getting in there and cutting it all out will help you from getting stuck. You don't want that. And there is one other tip I would say. You can tie a string to any of these. I like to do it at the corner and put it on a carabiner. That way this thing, for some reason, if you hit a riptide or a drift or the current's kind of strong, your beautiful piece of work did not just go floating down the river or the ocean without you. Right there into the trash can. One last one. We're going to call this video a wrap. Thank you guys so much for watching me today. I hope this really helped you. If it was helpful, please like, subscribe, comment if you have any suggestions. I know there's a bunch of ways to do this. This is the way I prefer. I really hope it helped you. Again, if you got another way, put it in the description. Put it in the comments. Let me know. But this is what I like to do. And that is all set, ready to go for you to be able to go sift whatever you like to. Want to go get a Megalodon tooth? Works great for it. Want to get some shark teeth? Well, that's Megalodon tooth is a shark, but you know what I mean. Does that really well. You can do arrowheads. You can do lots of different things depending on what part of the country you're in, if you're in the United States, or what part of the world you're in if you're around the world. Thank you guys so much.